I've just found hubby lying to colleagues, faking my pregnant sister as his wife. Can I sort this? I'm 30 years old, and for the past 7 years, I've been with a man I thought was my forever, my husband. Let's call him Alex. We met back in college, and from the very start, he was different. You see, I've always been a bit of a tomboy. Sports were practically my lifeblood. I was that girl on the soccer field, sprinting after the ball with a fierce determination, my ponytail flying behind me. Weekends were often spent at the basketball court, shooting hoops until the sun started to set. And my wardrobe? Well, it was filled with jeans, t-shirts and sneakers, dresses and heels. They just weren't my thing. My body was a testament to all those years of athletic pursuits, toned and strong. But growing up, this made me stand out in a way that wasn't always comfortable. In a world where girls were supposed to be delicate and prim, I was the one getting mud on my shoes and scrapes on my knees. But then came Alex. From the moment we locked eyes in that crowded lecture hall, something shifted. He didn't bat an eyelid at my tomboyish ways. In fact, he seemed to embrace them. He'd cheer me on from the sidelines during my games, bringing a big thermos of hot chocolate in the winter to warm me up after a match. When we went out, he never once pressured me to wear something I didn't want to. He loved me for who I was, and that's what made me believe, with all my heart, that he was the one I'd spend the rest of my life with. We tied the knot 5 years ago, and for the most part, life was a dream. We had our cozy little apartment, filled with photos of our adventures together. Weeknights were spent cooking dinner side by side, trying out new recipes from that cookbook we got as a wedding gift. Weekends were for lazy brunches and long walks in the park. I also have a younger sister, Rosalie. She's 26, and she's truly a sight to behold. Her beauty isn't just skin deep, it radiates from within. With her flowing golden hair, big blue eyes, and a smile that could light up a room, she has this effortless charm that makes people gravitate towards her. At parties, she's always the center of attention, but not in an obnoxious way. She's genuinely kind and interested in others, always making sure everyone feels included. Growing up, though, wasn't easy for either of us. Our mom had some serious narcissistic tendencies. She was constantly comparing us, and Rosalie was always her favorite. She was the golden child, showered with praise and attention for every little thing she did. I, on the other hand, felt like I was always in the shadows. But it was never Rosalie's fault. She was always there for me, offering a shoulder to cry on when mom's comments got to be too much. She was the type to avoid confrontation at all costs, often sacrificing her own needs to keep the peace and make others happy. We never had any major issues between us, but those years of being compared to her left me with some deep-seated insecurities that I've been trying to shake for as long as I can remember. About 2 months ago, Rosalie's world came crashing down. She'd been with her long-term partner for years, and they seemed so in love. But then he found out she was pregnant, and instead of being excited, he panicked and left. She was devastated. I remember the day she showed up at my door, eyes red and swollen from crying, her suitcase in hand. My heart broke for her. We sat on the couch, and I held her as she sobbed. After she calmed down a bit, we talked it over, and I told her she should move in with us for a while, just until she got back on her feet. She agreed, and that's how she's been living with us ever since. At first, everything seemed fine. Alex was his usual self around her. He'd joke with her in the mornings over breakfast, asking her how she was feeling and if she needed anything. Or so I thought. But then a month ago, I was drowning in work. Deadlines were piling up, and I had reports coming out of my ears. I was chained to my desk, surrounded by mountains of paperwork. In a moment of desperation, I asked Rosalie if she could do me a huge favor and drop off something for Alex at his work. It was a simple enough request, or so I thought. Well, she did it, and later that day, when I finally had a moment to breathe, she told me what had happened. Apparently, when she got there, everyone assumed she was Alex's wife. They were all smiles, congratulating him on his beautiful wife and their soon-to-be son. And the worst part? Alex just went along with it. He didn't correct them, not even for a second. When she told me this, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why would he do that? I tried to push it to the back of my mind, telling myself it was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. In the days following Rosalie's revelation, I tried my best to act normal. I didn't want to let on just how much that incident had shaken me. But every time I looked at Alex, a knot formed in my stomach. I started noticing little things that I'd brushed aside before, like how he never really talked about his work friends or invited me to any of his office events. It was as if he had this whole other life that I wasn't a part of. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch watching TV, I decided to broach the subject casually. "Hey, Alex," I said, trying to keep my voice light. You never really tell me about the people you work with. Do you have any good friends there? He looked up from his phone, a bit startled, as if I caught him off guard. Yeah, there are a few guys I get along with. Why do you ask? I shrugged, pretending not to care. Just curious. I feel like I don't know much about that side of your life. He mumbled something about work being busy and changed the subject, but I couldn't let it go. The next day, while he was at work, I found myself rummaging through our photo albums. I was looking for any pictures of us together that he might have taken to his office. There were plenty of photos of our travels, our hikes in the mountains, and our lazy beach days, but not a single one that showed us as a couple in a work context. It was strange. I remembered him taking some photos at a company picnic a few years ago. What had happened to them? That night, when Alex came home, I confronted him again. I was looking through our photos today, I said, watching his reaction closely. I couldn't find any of us together that you might have at work. What happened to those pictures from the picnic? He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Oh, I don't know. I think I must have lost them or something. His answer didn't satisfy me. It sounded too convenient. A week passed, and the tension between us grew thicker. I could barely look at him without feeling a mix of anger and hurt. And then, we had a dinner plan with some mutual friends. I thought it would be a nice distraction, but it turned out to be a nightmare. At the restaurant, one of our friends asked Alex how work was going. He started talking, and for some reason, he mentioned Rosalie. She's been staying with us, he said. It's been nice having her around. Our friend smiled and said, Your sister's so sweet. You're lucky to have her. I froze. Sister? Why did he call her that? I looked at Alex, and he seemed to realize his mistake too late. His face turned pale, and he quickly tried to backtrack. But the damage was done. I excused myself from the table and went to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and burst into tears. How could he keep doing this? It was like he was deliberately trying to make everyone think Rosalie was his wife. I didn't understand what was going on in his head. When I came out of the bathroom, I told Alex I wanted to go home. The rest of the evening was ruined. The car ride home after that disastrous dinner was painfully silent. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel Alex stealing glances at me, but I refused to meet his eyes. My mind was racing, replaying the evening's events over and over. How could he have been so careless? Or was it carelessness at all? Maybe it was intentional. Once we got home, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I slammed the front door shut and turned to face him. Alex, we need to talk. Right now. My voice was shaking with a mixture of anger and desperation. He nodded, looking defeated. We walked into the living room, and I sat down on the couch, my hands clenched in my lap. Explain to me what's going on, I demanded. Why do you keep introducing Rosalie as your sister? Why are you hiding our relationship at work? He sank into the chair across from me, running his hands through his hair. I don't know how it got this bad, he began. It started a while ago. There was this project at work, and I was up for a promotion. I thought if I presented myself as a family man with a beautiful pregnant wife, it might give me an edge. It was stupid, I know. I stared at him in disbelief. So you used Rosalie? You used our relationship to further your career? I could feel the tears welling up again. What about us, Alex? What about our agreement to be child-free? You made me think we were on the same page all these years. He hung his head. I'm sorry. I really am. It was a moment of weakness. I got caught up in the competition at work, and I lost sight of what was important. I scoffed. A moment of weakness? This has been going on for weeks. And what about the photos? You can't tell me you just lost them. What did you do with them? He shifted uncomfortably again. I took them down. I didn't want anyone asking questions. I thought it would be easier if I just kept our personal life separate from work. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And you never thought to talk to me about this? You just made these decisions on your own? I was shouting now. Alex just sat there, taking it. I know I should have. I was wrong. I don't know how to make it up to you. I stood up, pacing the room. Well, you better figure it out. Because right now, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I even know who you are anymore. I walked towards the bedroom, needing some space. Please don't go, he pleaded. Let's talk this through. But I ignored him and shut the bedroom door behind me. I collapsed on the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. My whole world felt like it was falling apart. I thought I had found my soulmate, but now it seemed like it was all a lie. That night, I barely slept a wink, tossing and turning. My mind was consumed with thoughts of Alex's betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the looks on his co-workers' faces when they congratulated him on his beautiful wife and the soon-to-be son. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The next morning, I woke up with puffy eyes and a heavy heart. I could hear Alex moving around in the kitchen, probably making coffee. I didn't want to face him, but I knew we couldn't avoid each other forever. I dragged myself out of bed and walked into the kitchen. He looked up at me with a sad, hopeful expression. "Good morning," he said softly. I just nodded and walked past him to pour myself a cup of coffee. The silence was deafening. "Can we talk?" he asked. I took a sip of my coffee and then turned to face him. "What is there to talk about?" "You've made your choices, Alex." My voice was cold. He sighed. "I know I messed up, but I don't want to lose you. Please, let me make it up to you." I scoffed. "How do you plan to do that? You've broken my trust. You made me feel like I wasn't good enough for you to show off at work." Tears started to stream down my face again. "That's not true," he said, reaching out to touch my arm. I pulled away. "Don't touch me. You don't get to do that right now." I walked over to the table and sat down. Alex followed and sat across from me. "I've been thinking all night," he said. "I'll tell everyone at work the truth. I'll show them pictures of us, and I'll make it clear that you're my wife." I looked at him skeptically. "And how do I know you won't just do it to appease me for now? How do I trust that you won't go back to your old ways?" He hung his head. "I guess you'll just have to give me time to prove myself. I love you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this." I didn't know what to believe. Meanwhile, Rosalie was caught in the middle of all this. She could sense the tension in the house and knew it was because of her, even though it wasn't her fault. She came into the kitchen, looking hesitant. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I felt bad for her. She was already going through so much with the breakup and the pregnancy. "It's fine, Rosalie," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "It's just something Alex and I need to work out." She nodded and sat down with us. "I'm really sorry," she said. "I never wanted to cause any problems." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong." But even as I said it, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of resentment. Not towards her, but towards the situation. Later that day, I decided to call a friend. I needed to talk to someone outside of this mess. I told her everything that had happened, and she was shocked. "Oh my God, that's awful," she said. "What are you going to do?" I sighed. "I don't know. I love Alex, but I don't know if I can forgive him this easily. And I don't want to lose my sister either." It was a no-win situation. That night, Alex and I slept in separate rooms again. The distance between us felt like a chasm, and I didn't know if we'd ever be able to bridge it. In the days that followed, the house felt like a war zone. The silence between Alex and me was punctuated only by the occasional awkward glance or forced conversation. Rosalie tried her best to stay out of our way, but I could see the pain in her eyes. She was still dealing with her own heartbreak and now had to tiptoe around our crumbling marriage. One afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I needed to get away from the suffocating atmosphere at home. As I strolled through the park, I watched the families playing, the kids laughing, and it made my heart ache. I thought about what Alex and I had lost. We used to be like those happy couples, carefree and in love, but now it seems so far away. When I got back home, Alex was waiting for me in the living room. He looked up with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I thought we could go out for dinner," he said. "Just the two of us. Maybe talk things through in a different setting." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say yes, to give him a chance to make things right. But another part was still so hurt and angry. "Okay," I finally said, "but don't expect miracles." We drove to a small, quiet restaurant we used to love. The memories of our past dates there came flooding back, and it was bittersweet. Over dinner, Alex started talking. "I know I can't change what I did," he said, "but I want you to know how truly sorry I am. I've been thinking a lot about why I did it, and it was pure stupidity. I let my insecurities at work get the best of me. I should have been proud to show you off as my wife, no matter what." I listened, my guard still up. He continued, "I told my boss and a few close colleagues the truth today. It was hard, but it felt like the right thing to do. And I brought these." He pulled out a small photo album. It was filled with pictures of us, from our first date to our wedding day. "I want to put these on my desk at work, so everyone knows who you are to me." I looked at the photos, and for the first time in days, I felt a small spark of hope. But I wasn't ready to let go of my anger completely. "It's a start," I said, "but it's going to take time, Alex. You really hurt me." He nodded. "I know, and I'm willing to wait. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." After dinner, we drove home in a more comfortable silence. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Back at home, Rosalie was sitting on the couch. She looked up with a worried expression. "How did it go?" she asked. I sat down next to her and put my arm around her. "It was okay," I said. "We have a long way to go, but we're trying." She smiled, relieved. In the weeks that came, Alex made a real effort. He started inviting me to work events, introducing me to his friends with pride. We also started going to counseling together. It was tough at first, facing all our issues head on, but it helped us understand each other better. Slowly, the trust between us began to rebuild. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we were working through them. Rosalie decided to move out a few months later, when she felt more stable on her feet. She found a small apartment close by, and we promised to stay in touch. As for me and Alex, our relationship would never be the same as it was before, but in a way it was stronger. We had faced our darkest moment and come out the other side. I learned that love isn't always easy, but it's worth fighting for. And as we sat on the couch one evening, cuddling like we used to, I knew that we had found our way back to each other.